Welcome to the Deeper by Design podcast, where faith meets the science and practice of connection. I'm Dr. Trevor Hislop, author, speaker, marriage and family therapist, and ministry leader. So here's the premise. Everything is relational. We were designed by God for deep relationships, but deep connection doesn't just happen. It's something we can design through intentional practice, one moment at a time. That's why this podcast brings together theology that forms us and relational science that explains us, so we can move from inspiration to transformation. In this podcast, you'll hear practical teaching, tools, and stories that can help you build emotional safety, interrupt destructive cycles, and practice repair that restores trust. In some episodes, it's me offering clear frameworks and simple steps that you can use right away. In other episodes, I'm joined by innovative thought leaders at the intersection of theology, psychology, neuroscience, and leadership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's go deeper by design. And welcome to another episode of the Deeper by Design podcast. I'm Dr. Trevor, and it is so great to be with you today. Today, I am joined by Julie Baumgardner, a marriage and family educator and nationally sought after speaker who has spent decades helping couples build stronger, healthier relationships. Julie is a fellow podcaster. She's the host of Marriage on the Daily, a practical, hope-filled podcast designed especially for couples in the first 10 years of marriage, and is focused on everyday choices that build connection, trust, and emotional safety over time. I'm really excited, Julie, as we spend more time in this episode learning more about, again, the Marriage on the Daily podcast, but also the work that you're doing there. So prior to this, Julie previously served as the senior director of WinShape Marriage. And prior to that, she spent over 2 decades as the president and CEO of First Things First, which is a major marriage and family initiative known for research-informed relationship education. She's also one of the co-founders of the National Alliance of Relationship and Marriage Education, also known as NARMY. So her work has also included influence on Capitol Hill. So she presented at a White House conference on helping America's youth and testifying on Capitol Hill about the benefits of marriage. Man, there's so much more that I could share, Julie, about the work that you've done. And I'm sure as we unpack this today, we'll discover a bit more of that. But I am so glad to have you here on the Deeper by Design podcast. So welcome to you.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be with you today.
So I would love to start with just maybe hearing a bit more, not just about the work that you've done, a little bit of your story. And I think the real question I want to start with is the personal why. Why are you so passionate about helping others and caring for them in their marriage?
It's a great question. And it actually started when I was in high school. I grew up in a home that I thought was a normal, healthy home. And I have a sister who's 5 years younger than me, and then a brother who's 2 years older. And my brother was 95% hearing impaired and functioned at about a first grade level for most of his adult life. And when I was getting ready to graduate from high school and go off to college, my father came in the family room, sat us all down, and shared that he was leaving. Wow. And what I did not understand in that moment was when he said he was leaving, he didn't only mean that he was leaving my mom. He meant that he was leaving our entire family and just starting a new life, and did not want us in his life. I was a real daddy's girl, and my world was rocked. I had already decided I was going to major in psychology. I already felt like the Lord was calling me to work with families who had children with special needs, because I saw how hard that was on my parents' marriage and just trying to navigate all of that as a family. But when my dad left, it was absolutely devastating. And I can, to this day, vividly remember walking into one of my professors' office right before Christmas of my freshman year
Mm.
and telling him I was just absolutely dreading going home because it was heavy. It was hard. Nobody was doing well. And he looked at me and he said, I hate this for you. And I am sad for you. And I also know that you have said you feel called to help families. And so you have no idea how the Lord is going to take this and use it in your life for good.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that everything changed in that moment. I would say that I received that and went home, and it was hard. It was so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, thank you for sharing that. I know I recently had a chance to be on your podcast not that long ago
Yes.
and share a little bit of my story. And
Yes.
one of the overlaps here, which actually I think is pretty common for people that are in our space, is
Yeah.
as you shared that there was something personal for you, right?
Yes.
When your dad, again, not just left the marriage, not just left your mom, but left the family.
Mhm.
Part of my story is when I was 13, my parents divorced, and it was a shock. And I remember going to see a counselor, and that counselor was like incredibly impactful to my life and not surprising, right? That led me on a trajectory and a path, right?
Yes.
And so I'm hearing for you, right, this deep sense of meaning and purpose,
Yes.
right? Out of your what started as your own pain, right?
Yes. And, I think the thing that struck me over time is that we were heavily involved in church. We had a lot of
Yeah.
community around us. And so my question was, one, where was everybody? Even my best friend, decades later, we were having a conversation about my parents' divorce. And she said, I didn't know what to say to you. You were the
Mm.
only person in my world that their parents were divorcing. And I just didn't know what to say to you. And so I said nothing. And I feel really bad about that. But
Wow.
as I was going through the process of getting my master's in community agency counseling, a lot of the questions for me was, could this have been prevented?
Mm.
Could there have been any intervention that would have helped my parents get out of the ditch and back on track? And I think that that's where my real passion comes from, is just
Yeah.
knowing that 67, even 70% of marriages that end, yes, they're in the ditch, they're sideways with each other, but it's not because of abuse, affairs, or addiction. It's because of the everyday challenges
Mm.
that come into our lives, and we get sideways and we get disconnected and we think we've tried everything we know
Yeah.
and it's not working. So
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
need to call it quits. And I want those couples to know, wait, you can actually call a timeout. And there are people that can help you get out of the ditch. So
Mm.
that's where my passion comes from.
That's so great. In fact, I want to connect that too. So the bio that I read was super impressive. And I said, that's not even just like, it's like the tip of the iceberg of the stuff that you've done. So, right. All that time with NARMY, all that time with First Things First, all those years with Wind-Shaped Marriage. Like, what led you to launch Marriage on the Daily, right? And I'm curious about that specifically because, again, I operate in some of those same kind of spaces, right? What was the gap that you're trying to fill? What was the need, that maybe felt like it was unmet, that you just felt called and convicted to step into that?
Yes. First, I would say in my own marriage, Jay and I have been married 37 years.
Yeah.
And when we said I do, we absolutely genuinely loved each other.
Mm.
And man, figuring out that dance in the first 5 to 10 years was challenging. Both of us are children of divorce, and we both had agreed divorce was not an option. So we were going
Yeah.
to figure it out. So that first and foremost. Secondly, about, I would say 8 years into our marriage, I was approached about a group of business leaders in our community wanting to launch an organization called First Things First.
Yeah.
They said this is going to be prevention oriented. It is going to have 3 goals: to reduce divorce and out of wedlock pregnancies, and to increase father involvement in the lives of their children, all by 30% in 3 years. I was like, okay, that's a big area.
That was pretty big, pretty aspirational, it seemed, right?
Right. But
Wow.
I'm really all in, because
Yeah.
the prevention aspect of it, catching people early before they're in the river, if you will, and we're trying to throw them a life preserver. I wanted to catch them upstream before they ever fell in, and actually give them tools and help them understand how important their relationship with the Lord is, because I kept talking with
Mm.
couples, and they were looking to their spouse to be their everything, their best friend, their confidant, their lover, all the things. That's a heavy load. And if you're thinking
Yeah.
that your spouse completes you, you're going to be really disappointed. So your relationship with the Lord, your vertical relationship with the Lord, is very, very impactful to your
Hmm.
horizontal relationship with your spouse. And so, uh, being able to be part of First Things First was another piece of it. And then I would just say the retreats, leading the retreats with couples
Yeah.
preparing for marriage. What I realized over time in seeing couples preparing for marriage, and then couples who were coming for marriage enrichment, that the first 10 years, and research actually plays this out, but the first 10 years are so pivotal.
Hmm.
If you are focused on understanding how we dance together, how we're intentional about connecting, what we want our priorities to be, who we allow to speak into our marriage, and who we've asked to join us on the journey, all of that plays into really creating a very strong foundation for your marriage that will serve you well over time as children come into the picture, as careers unfold, and you have promotion
Right.
opportunities and people are talking to you. What you have laid as your foundation is very
Hmm.
impactful. So Marriage on the Daily with Julie B is really just taking all of that information and saying, hey, let's focus on all the things that I wished I had known and I
Yeah.
would love for everyone else to know, in order to help them be in a thriving, healthy marriage relationship, which is what everybody says they want. They're
Right.
not sure about the roadmap to get there.
Sure. Love that. In fact, you said something, I want to come back to it, which is our vertical relationship with the Lord is so vital, right, to our horizontal relationship with our spouse,
Yes.
right? I mean, like, so important. And I mean, like you say it with such insight, but I think I wanted to slow that down, because I think it's so easy for us to just assume, like, well, of course that's true and everybody knows that. And, but the reality of that, right? The more that we pour in, and connect and find intimacy in our spiritual, right, connection with the Lord, right? The more impactful that becomes, right? In the way that we see our spouse and care for them in the right here and right now.
Yes. Well, and the more you're in the Word, the more you carry that with you every day. And I'm reminded that Jay is
Hmm.
fearfully and wonderfully made in
Yeah.
the image of God.
Right.
And
Right.
when I'm all up in my flesh and I am thinking about me, 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 me,
Mm.
when I remind myself, hey, wait a minute. One, you need to breathe. And two, you need to look at him through the eyes of Christ and remember that it isn't about him being more like you.
Yeah.
It is about you guys figuring out how to love each other well, understanding that it is actually really great that we're different and that we can
Right.
leverage
Right.
differences and, and make them work for our marriage. And so
Yeah.
the vertical relationship, I mean, y- life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Mm.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is
Right.
he.
Yeah.
I loved probably 10 years ago when they really started talking about neuroscience, and
Uh-huh.
they were digging into, you can train your brain. And so how you think
Right.
about your spouse, if I think negatively about Jay, the more I think negatively about him and the more I focus on what I think are his weaknesses and shortcomings, the more my brain is actually going to go there and
Mm,
more I'm going to see. And so I learned, oh, I need to train my brain to
right.
look at Jay and see how the Lord has made him and see that as a gift, not as a DIY project for me.
Right. Yep. Right. Yeah. 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 For my listeners and this podcast, for Deeper by Design, in fact, the whole kind of tagline kind of focus of that is the integration of faith with the science and practice of connection. That's exactly what you're talking about, right? Founded in our faith, right? Talking about neuroscience, right? And then I want to spend more time leaning into the kind of the practice
Yes.
of this. Um, you shared a little bit about the first 10-year journey for you and Jay, and probably not surprising. That's why you're so passionate about caring for couples in the first 10 years of marriage, right? You talked about that kind of being foundation. Now, I'm a marriage and family therapist, so I work with a lot of couples, and they sit in my clinics at Live Well Behavioral Health, and I'm meeting with them. And when they sit down with me, I will often ask them, where's the pain points, or why are you here, or what are we working on? And I usually hear things like, we need better communication, or we fell out of love, or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious in your work with couples, right? When couples, when they feel stuck, I mean, my sense is they don't just need more love, right? They don't just need more communication, right? Like they need some kind of like pathway, right? Like some kind of game plan, some kind of strategy, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just thinking that one of the things I learned over time was that I could focus on Jay all day long and what
Mm,
he's not doing. And I saw that a lot. I spent time counseling couples,
mm,
and what I actually realized for me is that I had work to do, and I
mm,
needed to learn what it looked like to show up in our marriage as the healthiest, best version of me. And that meant taking a really good, hard look at myself. Uh,
mm.
I can remember early in our marriage, Jay to this day doesn't wear a watch. And this was really back in the day, so we didn't have cell phones either. And
Uh-huh.
so Jay would tell me, I'm going to be home at a certain time. We both worked. I usually got home before him, so I would get dinner going. He would say what time he was going to be home, and so I kind of worked to have everything ready for about that time.
Mm,
Well, that time would come and it would go, and he wasn't home. And I would really get spun up, worked up, irritated, frustrated. And this went on over time. And I'm in my head, not really talking with him. I think he knew I was irritated with him when he would come in late, but not to the, not really to the degree. I don't think he understood the degree to which I was uptight and
yeah.
spun up.
Yeah.
And finally, one day he came in and I was like, we need to talk. And I'm
Mm,
big eyed and
yeah. Right. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
he gets big eyed like during the
And
headlight.
then he's like, oh no. Right. Yeah.
But I said to him, hey, I am not interested in divorce, but this just cannot keep on. And
Wow.
he looked at me and he was like, wait, what? And I realized in that moment that when my parents were going through all that they went through,
Mm,
my dad would call my mom and tell her that he was coming home late because he was working late. He wasn't really working late. He was actually seeing another woman.
mm,
And so even though I had absolutely no reason at all to believe that Jay was cheating on me, I still went there. And abandonment and safety are just huge issues for me.
mm.
And so what I realized, and both of us were having this conversation, is that um, I needed to deal with my abandonment issues and my safety issues. And
Yeah.
that was not work that Jay could do for me. It was work I had to do. And to this day, sometimes it still creeps in. I mean, we don't have a perfect marriage. We're still
Yeah.
on this journey. So for both of us, things can happen. I think we're quicker to have an aha moment of, wait a minute,
Yeah.
breathe.
Right.
But back then it was really a thing. And
Uh,
it took time for me to do my work, for Jay to be patient with me, and for us to not attack each other, but to learn to attack the issue together. And I think that that's
mm,
easy to forget in those first years of marriage. You date and you think it's so easy. And we've talked about everything that we could possibly need to talk about. And you get married. And I also think that most couples don't realize that there is basically a drug, a chemical in your brain,
right.
called DEA. And for the
Uh-huh.
first few years, you kind of get this free ride of almost like rose colored glasses. You overlook some
Mm,
things, but that chemical wears off
uh,
over the 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, I think a lot of couples look at their marriage and go, oh my goodness, did I marry the wrong person? Why is this so hard? Romance seemed to
mm,
come so easy in the first 2 years. Why are we on the struggle bus with that now? Because nobody says to them, yep, you get a little bit of a pass in the first 2 years, and then
wow.
you have to, that's your time to learn to be intentional about the importance of connection, intentional about romance, intentional about
Mm,
sure that you are doing the work that you need to do to heal, because we all bring stuff to marriage.
right.
Nobody comes to marriage not having baggage.
Right.
So being willing to recognize, oh, okay, I'm a sinner saved by grace, and so are you. And we both have our stuff, and we get to do this journey together, and we get to learn
Yeah.
how to attack issues together, not be adversarial with each other. Because
Mm,
if someone wins and someone loses, your marriage loses.
yeah.
And the whole goal is, how do we team well together? And that's a dance. That's absolutely a dance. And you learn it over
Mm,
time.
yeah. Man, there's so much in that. I want to recap a little bit, and then before we kind of keep leaning in this topic. Um, so I hear you say, which I think I know, but I think for a lot of our listeners, right, this what people kind of think of like the honeymoon phase. There's actually something neurologically something chemically that's happening, right? This idea that you said, just sort of get this free pass, right? So couples get together, right? They get married, right? And it takes a little bit for them to start to recognize maybe what's already been happening. Like we talked about briefly, and I think it's common to talk about the idea of like relational drift, right? Where little by little you start to drift apart. You mentioned earlier some of those maybe tensions, right? Of whether it's stress load, having kids, pressures at work. I want to talk a little bit more about conflict. Uh, I think in the midst of that, you shared from your own experience this like your own sort of I guess we call it family of origin,
Mhm,
right? Like
mhm.
where what happened with your dad and your mom, right? And I mean, we would every bit, like consider that like that was a traumatic event, not just for your mom,
Definitely.
but for the entire family, right?
Yes.
The discovery of that, and it's something that stuck with you, and it gets re-triggered, and it shows up for you, and so for you and Jay in that season, like it was real. And so even though right, Jay's not being unfaithful to you, right, there's something that kind of triggers your nervous system,
Mhm.
right, that says, ooh, this doesn't feel good. This isn't safe, right? And you had enough courage to sit him down, right, and have that honest conversation with you. And I think what's important, and as one of the takeaways I want to maybe just ask a question about is how do couples normalize struggle,
Yeah.
maybe without normalizing disconnection. And what I mean by that is, how can couples recognize, like you said, we're not perfect. We don't have a perfect marriage, right? Like I'm working on me, you're working on you.
Mhm.
And it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have struggle,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to cause or create disconnection.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the big piece for me that I think is so important for couples to grasp. First of all, there are folks that go into marriage and think if I marry the right person, we're not going to have conflict. And I would say that when you bring two people together who've been raised in two different homes with different ways of doing things, you're not going to avoid conflict. That's not the goal. I love how Dr. Gary Oliver talks about conflict. He and his wife Carrie wrote a book called Mad About Us that I read a really time ago, and I love it. And he's also got an outstanding workbook on dealing with anger. And one of the things that he talks about is that it's not avoiding conflict that builds intimacy in your marriage. It's actually creating a safe space in your marriage to have the hard conversations that actually gives the opportunity to deepen intimacy in your marriage, because you come to the table knowing we've got a really hard thing that we've got to deal with. And it could be something that just comes like sideways at you, a job loss or something difficult with a parent, the death of a parent or something else. And you have to figure out, oh, how are we going to navigate this? And so being able to sit down and have the hard conversation is absolutely key to being able to move forward. So it's not the avoidance of conflict that helps you to build a strong marriage. So sweeping the elephant under the rug is the least helpful thing you can do. And I say that also saying that when we came to marriage, I'm not afraid of conflict. I don't love it, but what I love less is feeling like there's distance between me and Jay. Now, Jay, conflict. I mean, if he senses that there's conflict, he wants to back out of the room because it is very uncomfortable for him.
Yeah.
And so early on in our marriage, I would look at him and I would look at his face and be able to say, something's not right. What's wrong? And he would say nothing. And I would follow him through the house saying, no, I know there's something. You just need to tell me. We can work it out. Can I just say that's not helpful? I can say, don't do that. But what I learned was helpful was to say to him, hey, I can see that there is something bothering you. And I would love to know what that is so that we have a conversation around it. And then I needed to be quiet because what they needed was some time to think about what it is that is bothering him and be able to come and tell me. So I think for couples early on in their marriage, the first thing that you have to realize is conflict is normal. And two, avoiding it isn't helpful. How you engage with each other around conflict really matters. And that's where I think it's important to remember you're solving for a problem. You're not against each other. So actually taking the time to say, oh, here's the issue. Here is the real issue at hand. And so now we're going to set that out here and we're going to say, let's have a conversation around how do we solve for that? And the reason I think it's really important to identify the issue is because if you don't, you could be talking about coming home late and the next thing you know, you're talking about, and there's this that I want to talk to you about, and there's this over here.
Sure.
You could forget even what the real main issue was that actually had you on the table. So identifying the issue keeps you focused. And I think that is very, very important to keep you from straying into other areas that will not help you solve for this issue. They'll just get you distracted.
Yeah.
And
I think
go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's just so much wisdom in that, right? You be able to identify the issue, right? And I think, and you touched on this. In fact, there's language that that categorizes internalizing and externalizing. Internalizing is I'm the problem or you're the problem. Externalizing is no, I'm not the problem, you're not the problem. So let's go figure out what the problem is. So that's identifying the issue, right?
Mhm.
So that we can actually work together, right? That
Yes.
we can identify a common enemy, and that enemy's not you and that enemy's not me.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that's so important.
Yes. And I think, Jay said something to me the other day. We were talking about something and he goes, well, if it's important to you, it's important to me.
Wow.
And I loved that
Yeah.
because sometimes you can hear your spouse say something and you might think this is just not a big deal.
Right.
However, if it's a big deal to Jay, it's a big deal to me. I will
Hmm.
figure out what we need to do differently that will actually help us move forward on the same page versus feeling
Yeah.
there's distance between the two of us.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that takes an incredible amount of discipline to be able to slow down, right? When you talked about earlier about the neuroscience, if you can train your brain, right? And you're also training your nervous system as a result of that, right? To take a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
right? To slow down in the process. And essentially what you're doing is you're slowing down that fight or flight trigger, right? That
Yeah.
response that's kicking up inside of you that makes your heart, beat faster and your breathing change and the butterflies in your stomach show up and all the other stuff, right? So if you can slow down in that moment. In fact, I heard you when you shared the example of, when Jay would come home and he didn't want to talk, and that made you all nervous. And then what would you do? You would like follow him around the house and ask him more questions. And right, in fact, there's actually a term for that from cybernetics. There's this term called circular causation. Circular causation is this kind of perpetual, like we can't figure out if it's the horse or the cart, right, or the
Right.
chicken or the egg, like which one caused which.
Yes.
Right. So the wife chasing the husband around the house, which causes the husband to shut down more, which causes and creates more concern for the wife, which creates more shutdown for the husband,
Mhm.
right. And it just perpetuates itself. And so for the wisdom that you had to just be quick to listen and slow to speak, right. That we know from scripture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, I'm just sitting here thinking early on,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's helpful for couples to sit down and have conversations around what really matters. And the reason that I say that, we had a very pivotal event happen in our marriage in our 8th year. Our daughter was 4 years old
Yeah.
and it became very ill to the point that he really couldn't function. He had a headache, and initially it was diagnosed as Meniere's, but over
Wow.
time it became worse and debilitating. And so at this time, both of us worked in healthcare, and he came in one night and just said, I really think my head's going to explode. And through a series
Mm.
of events, we actually learned that his head really was going to explode because he had a tumor in the third ventricle of his brain that was damming up spinal fluid. And so the neurologist said to me, your husband is going to be a direct admit to the neurosurgical intensive care unit. He needs to have emergency surgery. We have to get that out of there right now. And we're going to really pray that there's no tentacles on it because that could create all
Mm.
kinds of other issues. But then as he's talking with me about all these things, he says to me, did the doctor in the emergency room talk to you about doing a spinal tap? I said, yes. And he said, well, you need to be very thankful that he did not do that because he would have killed your husband instantly.
Wow.
So I'm not doing very well. I'm driving my husband to the hospital because we have to go to a different hospital. And we get there and I'm not doing well. Jay can barely talk because it really hurts to talk.
Mm.
And I can remember thinking to myself, I might be a single parent after tomorrow morning. And I'm having conversations with the Lord, like, wow, what is going on here? And I can remember Jay just pulling me in really close. And he says to me, we built our marriage on faith, believing in the Lord Jesus Christ. And he has carried us all this time. And we either really, really believe that or we don't. And I'm choosing to believe it. No matter what happens to me tomorrow morning, you're going to be okay. And, scripture tells us don't be anxious about anything, but submit all of your prayers to the Lord and let him work in you. And he also says to give thanks, and we're going to give thanks. And here he is lying on this gurney telling you all these things. This was a very pivotal moment. Obviously, Jay came through that surgery and he is doing well. I recognize it could have turned out very differently, but I think the clarifying moment for us was all the things that we had been focused on that did not matter a hill of beans. Did not matter at that moment in time. And so the change moving forward was, what are we going to focus on and what are we going to allow in our marriage? Who are we going to allow to speak into our marriage? And that made a very large difference for us. We stopped allowing, molehills to be mountains for us. There was just a lot of clarity around what really mattered. And I'm telling you, money is not the be all end all. It doesn't bring happiness. Being connected, knowing you're on the same page, being willing to have the hard conversations and believe the best in your spouse, different ball game, whole different ball game.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. I mean, it's like one of those, there's this incredible obstacle, but in the midst of it, there's an opportunity, right? And so you and Jay were able to see the opportunity, right? You were able to say like, okay, again, something not grounded in our faith, something that we have to be able to assess and evaluate what are our priorities, what are our values. And those are the things that we're going to give time, energy, and effort to. And that's the work we're going to do going forward. And I think for even just individuals or couples hearing this, that now we know that God doesn't cause or create those moments, but man, he sure uses them, doesn't he?
Right. And I think I wouldn't wish, I would not like to go back, but it was a clarifying moment for us. And there have been others. We've made decisions about careers, based on what was in the best interest of our marriage and family, and not necessarily more money or a promotion, but truly, what do we prioritize for our marriage and for our family? And what do we want for each other? And then figuring out, God brought us together with this opportunity to pour into each other, to help each other be all that God has purposed us to be. And that's a lifelong journey of remaining curious and being willing to walk the road together, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's good. I want to come back to something you said earlier, and then before we're done, I just want to get really practical with those who are listening to be able to say, hey, how do we put this into practice, right? Applications for living this out daily.
Yes.
And I want to go back to, we were talking about, briefly, we talked about conflict, and you said something like, we need to be able to create the safe space for the difficult conversation. And that sounds wonderful, like just hearing it, you're like, well, yeah, of course we do. But what's, I think, most difficult in that is creating the safe space.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of emotional or relational safety. What is it? Why does it matter? How do we build it? Like in actual, tangible, practical ways. So when you talk about that, and even as you were just a moment ago telling the story about you and Jay, and saying like we need to stay curious, right? And we need to be able to just make those commitments to walk this out together. Again, it all sounds wonderful. Right. But how do we get to that place where we can create safe space, where we can stay curious?
Yes. Well, I think one It's about being committed over time.
Mm-hmm.
I think grace definitely has a place in this journey because we're going to mess up. We're for sure going to mess up.
Yeah.
And being willing to show up and say, I am so sorry. I was wrong and I would love to try again. I don't want to keep repeating that. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things Jay and I talk about is I am really fast on my feet, and I'm also an external processor. So I don't know what I think until I say it out loud.
Yeah.
But
Right. Right.
he's an internal thinker and feeler, and
Mm-hmm.
neither one of those are wrong. They just are. And so appreciating the fact that we're different that way, and me recognizing that when I come at him fast and furious, it creates confusion, and that isn't helpful. And so a lot of times what I do when we are sideways with each other, one, we will both say, hey, can we talk about this? We will ask, when's a good time? Because for me, nighttime is not a good time. If you really want to get sideways with me or make something worse, require me to talk about it after 9 o'clock because I just, I'm not firing on all cylinders. So know the best times to have hard conversations as a couple. That's been a game changer for us as well. And then thinking about what is really going on here. Sometimes what I've learned, I can be irritated with Jay, and I need to actually pull back for a moment and ask the questions. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Am I really stressed out about something? Like, is this really about Jay or is it more about me? That's a big, important question. And so sometimes I'll take myself on a walk. I put myself in timeout. When I go through this loop of what is the real issue, because most couples argue and they don't even argue about the issue. They're angry, but they talk up here, up at the top of the iceberg, if you will, about the non-issues. And they never really say, well, when you said that about me in front of everyone, it really hurt my feelings. I mean, Jay and I actually had an experience where we were in front of a whole class of premarital couples. And I came to the marriage with a lot of student debt because I put myself through college and graduate school. And we've talked about that before, just about money and how we manage money. But on that particular day, Jay is very fun and he has a big personality and he's like a party waiting to happen all the time. And so he had everybody laughing and just having a good time. And we start talking about money and he goes, yeah. And I paid all of her student loan debt off. And I'm like, what? I'm trying to hold it together. I'm embarrassed. We finish out the conversation and we leave and we get in the car and Jay goes, that was fabulous. I mean, they were laughing. They were right with us. There was so much energy in the room. And I turned to him. I'm like, that was not fabulous. I mean, I was embarrassed. We worked together to pay off my student debt. And we agreed that that was what we were going to do. Back in the day, early in our marriage, I would have been quiet. He would have said what's wrong. I would have said nothing. We would have been sideways for the rest of that day, maybe even into the next day. But instead, he looked at me and he stopped dead in his tracks and he pulled the car. He stopped driving. He pulled the car over and he said, I am so sorry. I would never intentionally embarrass you or hurt your feelings. Emotional safety.
Yeah.
I felt unsafe. I felt like I had just been like put out there in front of everybody. But he pulls it back in and he says, I'm so sorry. So pride didn't get in the way of him being able to take ownership of that moment.
Yeah.
We walked for a minute and we started driving back home and we were
Wow.
good for the rest of the day. So being willing to not let pride get in the way of owning what is yours to own,
Mhm.
and then creating this safe space of, oh my goodness, I would never intentionally trounce on your heart. I would never intentionally embarrass you in
Yeah.
front of people.
Yeah.
And then what can I do to make it right?
Sure, sure. And what a difficult conversation, but like this beautiful illustration, right? Like this. So that first part of that, which is, it didn't feel safe, right? You didn't feel valued and validated and seen and heard and
All
all
the
the stuff, right? And then, right? And then you have enough courage, right? To assert yourself. Like that was not wonderful. That was terrible, right? With some honesty and transparency, right? The risk that you were willing to take, because you said the former you, the old you would have been you just shut up and suffer quietly, right? And Jay pulls the car over, right? And then he's able to, and together you are collectively able to find the safer place that you're talking about, right? The
Yes.
safe place to have the difficult conversation. That is a beautiful way, I think, for us to not just experience, but to illustrate emotional safety.
Yes.
Okay, so building on that, I know we need to wrap up. So I want to talk, maybe give us a few practical, maybe like on the daily practices,
Yeah.
for our
Yes.
listeners.
Yes. The first one I would say is the 4 points of connectedness. And this is something I learned decades ago from Linda Duncan. And it was because she saw couples becoming disconnected and it was literally destroying their marriage. And so the 4 points are: one, how you greet each other at the very beginning of the day when you wake up.
Mhm.
And even if you're both not early morning people, figuring out what works for you to be able to speak, I love you, I see you, I value you, and I value our marriage. So
Mm,
how you connect first thing straight out of the gates. The second one is how you part for the day. If it's a chaotic parting, you hit the snooze like 15 times and then you're running around trying to get ready and you bolt out the door and you don't have time to look at each other in the eyes and just say,
mm,
what's happening in your world today? How can I pray for you today? I love you.
mm,
When you miss that, when it's chaotic, a chaotic parting for the day, you carry that with you all day. So making sure that how you part for the day, you're intentional about. Just, it doesn't take more than 60 seconds to come together, give each other a kiss, say I love you, and just what's on your agenda. Is there anything I need to do for you? So how you part for the day. The third one is how you reconnect, not taking for
mm,
granted that you're coming back together. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. So how you reconnect sets the tone for how you engage each other until you go to bed.
mm.
So actually acknowledging each other when you come back through the door from work
Yeah.
and having conversation. And then the last time is how you say goodnight, because how you say goodnight sets the tone for how you rest.
Mm,
And as part of that, couples choose to make love. They choose to cuddle. They choose to download about their day.
mm,
They choose to pray together. And I would say any of those are great for that last connection and setting the tone for how you rest. Praying with each other is incredibly powerful. And I would say that not only does the Lord say pray, but we
mm,
also know based on research that praying together as a couple is very
yeah.
impactful in so many incredibly positive ways. It gives you a window into your spouse's heart. It allows you to pray literally for them, not Lord, make them
Mm.
more like me, but Lord, thank you for this person that you've put in my life to help me and for us to be able to do life together and give them wisdom and discernment and help me to know how to love them well.
Yeah.
Just simple,
Yeah.
a simple prayer like that speaks volumes. It's not eloquent. It's sincere. It's pouring into them and conversating with the Lord.
Mm,
Those intentional connecting points can help you journey well together and remind you hey, it isn't just the two of us. The Lord is walking this road with us.
Yeah.
Keeping Christ at the center is really imperative. And even when we mess up, we can acknowledge that and we can keep walking.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, so how we start our day, how we end our day, how we depart from one another, how we return to one another. You know, what I'm hearing in that is, first of all, it's very sort of rhythmic, right? There's a pattern to it, like kind of a strategy for it. But I think what's also beautiful about that is it's very attainable, sustainable, repeatable, right?
Because it's your day. It's literally not adding anything to
Yeah.
your day. It's just going
Yeah.
through your day.
Yeah. Let me ask a follow-up to that because I hear this often. Maybe just talk a little bit about responsibility, roles, gender norms in the midst of that. Like, whose job is it to say good morning and say goodbye and hello and welcome back and, or initiate, some kind of connection throughout the day?
I used to do a lot of speaking with mothers of preschoolers.
Yep.
And I would share with them the 4 points of connectedness. And they say to me, I'm not even going to tell my spouse I'm doing this. I'm just going to do it.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to see what happens. And then I would see them out at the mall or somewhere in the community, and they would come running up to me and say, oh my gosh, to be honest with you, I didn't really think that 4 points of connectedness was going to be that big of a deal. But I am here to tell you it transformed our marriage. And I just want to say thank you. So in terms of responsibility, if you are standing going, okay, I'm not going to do it until he does it, or I'm not going to do it until she does it.
Yeah.
That sets a tone for your marriage. And my question is that the tone you want for your marriage? Or is the tone more, I want to show up as the best version of me. I want to love well. I want to understand my spouse. And so I'm going to be intentional about serving well. And I'm not saying at the expense of your health. I am saying everybody showing up, being willing to wholeheartedly be all in.
Yeah.
And doing what it takes to love each other well on the daily. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that means every day you get the choice. You are making choices every day throughout the day about the lens you're going to use to see your spouse and your marriage. And if things aren't going well, ask for help. On average, the research shows that couples wait 7 years to ask for help. And 7 years is a long time. And it doesn't mean that you can't get out of the ditch after 7 years. It just means it's going to take a lot more effort. It's just going to be harder. And so if you're not doing well, ask for help from someone who can come alongside you and give you really good information, biblically rooted, research informed information to help you get out of the ditch.
Yeah. Yeah, Julie, that's so important. Thank you for sharing that. So just before we go, just share a little bit how people can stay connected with you. So talking about the podcast, speaking engagements, intensives, retreats, whatever that is. Again, you're just talking about this asking for help. So again, how can we stay connected with you?
So the podcast is Marriage on the Daily with Julie B. You can find that on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And then my website is marriageonthedaily.com. And there I have blogs, I have resources, your resources and others. And there's also information about speaking engagements there. So that's probably the best way to reach out to me if I can be helpful. I definitely want to do that. My goal is to help people thrive in their marriage on the daily.
All right. Well, Julie, again, thank you so much. It really has been an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you. And as we've talked about before, just to be in this space together as we get to care for and support others.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Deeper by Design podcast. If today's episode gave you language, clarity, or a next step, I'd love for you to carry it into a real conversation this week and share it with someone that you want to go deeper with. If you're looking for support beyond the podcast, LiveWell Behavioral Health offers in-person and virtual care in Florida through outpatient therapy and intensive outpatient programs. You can find out more at livewellbehavioralhealth.com. And wherever you live, LiveWell Coaching can help you put these ideas into practice through courses, challenges, and personalized coaching. You can check it out at livewell-coaching.com. So for resources, trainings, updates on the show, and to learn more about my work in Renovi Relational Therapy, you can connect with me personally at trevorhislop.com. All of these links are in the show notes for you today. I'm so glad you're here. Until next time, let's keep going deeper by design.